Sally was afraid. At school, they called her Unia's Friday girl because she seemed afraid of everything. But what she feared the most was the darkness. Every night she didn't want to go upstairs to bed. She hung around in the kitchen making excuses, anything to delay going up the stairs, anything to delay the moment when the light was switched off, plunging her room into darkness. One moment the room was bright, the next split second and the room was darker than jet. As her eyes adjusted, vague shapes swam into view. The chair in the corner looked like an old man crouching down, ready to leap at her. The dressing gown on the back of the door was like a thin man leaning, waiting for her to sleep before he hobbled across the room towards her. Sally lay in the darkness every night watching the old man and the thin man. Neither of them ever moved, but she was sure that when she fell asleep, they would be up and wandering round, peering at her sleeping face. But more than anything, she feared the nightmare man. Sally had seen him once, watching her through the window, a tall dark shape with a cloak billowing out behind him and two red eyes that glowed. She had spent the rest of the night buried under the covers, waiting for dawn. Of course, she had told her mother, but all she ever said was, "Don't be so silly," or "Hurry up and eat your breakfast," or "Not now, we'll be late for school." Since that night, Sally made sure that her curtains were tightly pulled together. The night of the storm, Sally lay in her bed watching the old man and the thin man. Thunder grumbled in the distance, lightning crackled, rain lashed the streets. Surely the nightmare man wouldn't be out on a night like this. Sally just had to know, heart thudding. She crept from her bed and peeked through the curtains. She got the shock of her life because there he was, clinging to the window with his twin red eyes staring right at her. Sally stepped back, but at that very moment the lightning flashed, lighting up the night sky. The nightmare man had gone, but Sally could see a distant tower, a tower with two red lights. She also saw the tree by her window move in the wind, casting a dark shadow. In that moment, as the lightning lit up the night, she realized that the nightmare man had not really existed at all. Only in her mind, she laughed aloud. Her bed seemed warm and cozy. She stared across her room through the curtains at the distant lights of the tower and watched the tree shadow blowing in the window. After that, the nightmare man never came back. Soon the thin man became a dressing gown, and the old man was just a chair with her clothes draped across it, ready for the next morning, ready for the sunlight. A family of four, two young children and their parents, were traveling on the road to when their car broke down. The parents went out to look for help and left the radio on for the kids in case they got bored. By nightfall, the parents still hadn't returned. Sad in the darkness, the children continued to listen to the radio and grew alarmed when they heard that a dangerous killer was on the loose, having escaped from a prison nearby. The newsreader warned listeners to take extreme care when going about their business. Time passed and the children waited. The silence outside the car was absolute until suddenly they heard knocking on the car roof above them. Clank, clank, clank. The knocks grew louder and faster. Duff, duff, duff. Unable to bear it any longer, the children opened the car doors and fled in terror. Only the eldest dared to turn to see the source of their fear. On top of the car was a large man who was bouncing two objects on the top of the vehicle, the heads of the children's parents. Several teenage girls went for a sleepover at a friend's house, taking advantage of the fact that the parents were away. When they turned out the lights, they started talking about an old man who had just been buried in a nearby cemetery. It was said that he had been buried alive and could be heard scratching at the coffin, trying to get out. One of the girls scoffed at the idea, so the others dared her to go visit the grave right there and then. As proof that she had actually gone, she was to drive a wooden stake into the earth of the grave. The girls left and her friends lay waiting for her to return. But the hours went by and their friend failed to materialize. They lay awake, increasingly terrified. Morning came and the girl still had not appeared. So when the parents came back, they all went down to the cemetery. There they found the girl lying on the grave, dead. When she had bent down to drive the stake into the ground, she had caught the hem of her skirt. Struggling to get up, she thought the bearded man had grabbed her. It was concluded that she died of fright. A teenage girl was asked to babysit for a family that lived in a huge, luxurious house. It was her first evening on the job, and after she put the children to bed upstairs, she sat down in front of the TV. But no sooner had she settled there than the phone rang. The caller was a man, gasping and laughing menacingly. He asked, "Have been up to check the children?" The babysitter hung up, convinced that her friends were playing a joke on her. But the man called again and again. He asked, "Have you been up to check the children?" Again she hung up, now frightened, but the man called a third time. This time he said, "I have taken care of the kids. Now I'm coming for you." By now the babysitter was truly terrified. She called the police and reported the calls. The police told her to try to distract the man the next time he phoned to give them time to trace the call. As expected, the man called back. The babysitter begged him to leave her alone, thus keeping him on the line for longer. Eventually, he hung up. Immediately, the phone rang again. This time, it was the police. "Leave the house fast. The calls are coming from upstairs." Written in a little girl's hand that read, "Your friend died because she wouldn't play with me. I have a new doll. I think it's jokes since our story has become famous in our town. But on the other hand, I'm scared. I wonder will she came for me?"